Chapter 12 highlights some of the principles for establishing advisory groups. One, an advisory group must represent the full range of the community values and interests, and sometimes this could be represented also in terms of like age, ethnicity, race, religious affiliation, and so on. Number two, the group really needs to have some purpose and some goal, and you are responsible for doing that as a staff member. If you do not have like a specific role for the advisory group, that means that you probably should not be starting that advisory group. You really need to start or to have like some parameters for what this like group will do. And James Crampton also notes that the longer a group exists, the more that they will learn from each other. They will learn like the different perspectives that they have, and when this happens, then you, as I said before, you are likely to come into an agreement. But sometimes that's not like that that good, and you want to therefore to establish more like term limits so that that keeps like the diversity of the committee. Also from the perspective of maybe somebody is like disruptive, or somebody is not that helpful. So again, bringing new energy is always good for the advisory groups, and this is why you want to have some term limits to like not circulate the same ideas, but to bring new energy and new ideas. And again, like this, in there's elections in some advisory groups, but that's not that often. Most often is that you have an appointment and simply a person is then after the term ends, being 2 years or 4 years, whatever it is, then they cannot serve any longer. And also he mentions that group members should inform their constituents through like briefings, organizational letters, public meetings, interviews, and just simply meeting with community leaders and tell them what the advisory group have been up to, because the city really depends on them being the linkage between that district and the people um, the people who live there, and the city. As a staff planner, you need to provide some support for advisory groups. So if you are a responsible manager, you should interact with the advisory group, and you should also send someone that is like in a high position of your organization, because these people are giving your some of their time, and you are have to show some respect, right? And saying that what they're doing is important, and therefore the person that needs to listen to what is being said is like someone that it has some power in your organization to be able to do anything. But at the same time, this the advisory group might be experts, but they might not know um, everything that is going on in the city, or some like rules and regulations. They might not know also some of the technical jargon that you're using. So it's important that you explain to the advisory group how the city works, laws and regulations, things that you can do and cannot do, but also just speaking plain language without using too much jargon. And the other thing I wanted to say is that because they need so much support, that you really need to think if you do need an advisory group, because it takes time away from your staff to do other projects, and they need a lot of like logistical support. So that's like a consideration before you actually start the advisory group. Chapter 12 offers some methods for selecting advisory group members. So one, we talked already about just different ways of like bringing diversity to the advisory group. Another way could be like through sectors, for bringing people that are parts of businesses or nonprofits, maybe academia, just like different kinds of stakeholders and groups. The selection of the advisory group oftentimes is like not up to the director of the organization. The director can recommend someone that they know, or maybe they hear of someone that is great through other methods, but the decision itself is like taken by city council, and at the end the mayor is the one who appoints this person. So there's a vetting process of like how this happens. You can find people by sending notices to community councils, by posting that you need someone in different like public notices spaces, including the city website. And you can be also very outgoing and trying to find people that might want to apply for these positions. The agency determines the interest, and it that it like wishes to have represented. So it should look for particular nonprofits or groups in order to select who will be in the advisory committee, and who will be representative, or which perspective might be missing. So maybe someone who is a lawyer, and maybe in the case of the things that have to do with the built environment, you might want someone who is in construction. If it's like about biking, then you want someone who is like a avid biker, or someone who works there. And I think that usually personal recommendations and through like networking, that's the best way that you can find people for your board. And you can use all these methods to augment the membership of your advisory group. So it's basically adding experts that are volunteering their time to help your organization. So that could be extremely beneficial to you. The one thing is that you need to also think about how big or small the advisory groups are. If you have like let's say lots of people, and 20 people or 30 people, personally I like no more than 13 in any advisory board, or even a board. But again, there's like research about that, like what is the right um, amount of people to have. One of the difficulties with the large group is that it is like very hard to schedule the a time for everyone to meet if it's like 30 or 40 people. And they might end up sending representatives from their organization instead, so they might miss a lot of meetings, especially if you don't have some guidance about like how many meetings they can um, miss. And it doesn't create like a group that is like cohesive. And so it might be a little bit harder to do unless you want to divide that big, large group into several subgroups or subcommittees that will do some kind of special, even more specialized type of work. And you can also like determine a membership by popular election. So you can have like neighbors choosing someone for an advisory group. That's not really that popular, but I have seen that happen before. And the advisory group could choose or select someone to be a chair or a co-chair. So that's probably more normal in where you have like that group of like, let's say 13 individuals choosing someone to lead the meetings. Um, it could also be that your staff leads the meetings, but ideally it would be like someone from that particular board. But it really depends on how do you structure this um, the regulations and procedures for the advisory group.